I want to ask you something sincere. For example, right now, as you're putting on any piece of clothing, whose voice is actually echoing in your head? Wait a second. I really want you to take this question seriously. For example, when you stand in front of your closet in the morning, choosing any outfit, is the thought running through your mind actually your own? Or are we talking about another voice that's been ingrained in you over the years, one that now sounds almost like your own? Last month, I was sitting with a client I really like. She's 55, very well groomed, someone who carries a certain grace. She sat there with her hands clasped on the table, calmly staring ahead. "It just seems so pointless to me now," she said. Her voice wasn't broken, just a little weary. "Who's going to see it anyway?" she added. There was a long silence between us. Then she looked out the window. Then she continued, "My husband doesn't even notice. My children don't say a word. And my friends, well, they're too busy with their own problems." She left the sentence hanging there in the air. Now that sentence hung there in the silence. Actually, I realized something clearly. Her problem definitely wasn't about her closet or the clothes in it. The problem was actually this. For years, she had dressed for someone else so that they would notice. And now a time had come when no one was looking anymore, or at least that's how she felt. And consequently, the desire to dress nicely had vanished. It was as if the sole purpose of looking good was to gain approval from others. This video will address exactly these kinds of things. This isn't a "how should I dress" video. Nor will I discuss things like which colors suit you, which cuts, or what's in style this season. I won't touch on any of that. I could call this the story of finally reclaiming something you've been doing for someone else for years, and doing it clearly for yourself. And believe me, as you might expect, this is a much harder thing because what we call a habit is actually deeply rooted in our brains. And I also want to make this clear. If you watch this video all the way through, you'll have to confront certain things about yourself. Things you haven't noticed or perhaps have been avoiding acknowledging in some way. Of course, many of these are small but truly jarring things. That's why I want you to watch the video all the way through, because this story isn't just about that client, it's about you. Before moving on to the first point, I want just one thing from you. Go to the comments and write this. I'm starting. Just 2 words, but writing those 2 words means making a decision. 1. Every time you look in the mirror, who are you actually asking? Every morning when you wake up, you stand in front of your closet for a while. I don't know, maybe you take out an outfit, then put it back. Then you try on another one, go back and look in the mirror again. But in the mirror, what do you actually notice in a situation like this? Your true self, or the version of you seen through someone else's eyes? Actually, sometimes you think, is this too flashy? Or will this make me look a bit older? Maybe even, what will my neighbor think if I wear this? Now, you really need to pause for a second here. Really stop. Because are you constantly asking these questions for the sake of others? I mean, someone who's been shaped by others' gazes for years. Isn't that just a habit? You're not even aware of it, are you, generally speaking? Because that voice isn't coming from the outside anymore. It's as if it's settled inside you and is practically screaming at you from there. At 5 or 6 in the morning, you're alone at home. Even when there's not a single person around to judge you, you can still hear that voice inside. This doesn't suit you, this is too much, this isn't appropriate for your age, and so on. So whose voice is it really? Your mother's? Or an old friend you loved dearly? Or a phrase you heard somewhere years ago? Or, we usually don't remember the answer to that question, do we? We just try to conform to that familiar voice. Epictetus, who was born somewhere many years ago, reminds us, people do not upset you, your thoughts about them upset you. They clearly recognized that pain 2,000 years ago. Now I see this every day, in women standing in front of their closets, unsure of what to do. Of course, it's not really the actual gazes of others that weigh you down. It's that voice I mentioned earlier. The one you've nurtured by magnifying their gazes in your own mind, the one you've carried inside you for years. I want you to know this. That voice isn't real. It's actually something that's stuck to you, almost like a habit. And if I'm to give you some good news, habits can be changed in some way once you become aware of them. For example, when you stand in front of your closet tomorrow morning, I want you to ask yourself just one question. Will I be happy wearing this? Or, does this suit me? Is it appropriate? And truly, just think of yourself and feel the answer. Because when you answer by feeling, your mind will definitely be convinced. What I'm talking about might seem like a small difference or detail. But actually, changing the question also means changing who you're asking. And this brings about results far greater than I ever imagined. By the way, I know this is at least the second video you've watched on my channel, and the fact that you still haven't subscribed really saddens me. Because seeing you here, moving forward together on this journey, is incredibly valuable to me. If you subscribe, you'll not only support me in the strongest way possible, but we also won't lose touch. 2. The price of stopping self-care is, unfortunately, paid in silence. No one just wakes up one morning and decides. It doesn't work that way. You know that too. What I'm talking about happens slowly, over time. First, it's like, maybe I don't need to today. Then it becomes, where am I even going today anyway? And once that takes hold, it's followed by thoughts like, I'm just this kind of person anyway. What's the point of making an effort? I've observed what I'm about to say countless times. When a woman stops taking care of herself, it's actually not that easy to notice from the outside right away. Her clothes might still look neat. Her hair might still be neatly combed. But inside, something is actually starting to slip away, quietly and without anyone noticing. And so her energy starts to drop. Mornings become much harder to get through. Getting out of bed, especially mentally, becomes a huge burden. And so looking in the mirror becomes something to avoid, almost as if it were a bad thing. You want to rush past it, you don't stop. Here's the insidious part. This starts to feel increasingly normal, and your brain stops sending any danger signals about it because it's becoming routine. And now the phrase, "this is who I am," becomes a perfectly normal observation. Marcus Aurelius didn't say that. He didn't write it for anyone to read. It was just in his journal. And it was a record of the things he wrote to himself, the things he was specifically trying to correct. So you could think of it as the lines an emperor jotted down to himself at night. And in those lines, he was actually saying, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, we will face difficulties today. But my real task is to remain honest with myself. So he defined the discipline of speech not outwardly, but specifically inwardly. As you've noticed, we're talking about being honest with yourself. This isn't a small distinction. It's actually, let me put it this way, the true beginning of everything. Here's a clear fact. The body carries the signal it receives from the outside inward. This isn't a matter of feeling, it's physiology. Whatever you're wearing affects your posture affects your mood, and your mood affects the decisions you make throughout the day. The chain is that long and that real. Try it for a week, just one day, once a week. Then honestly tell yourself how you feel. Not to anyone else, just to yourself. 3. There's no such thing as, it's too late. There's only, I haven't started yet. I want to start with a bitter truth. Whenever I hear the phrase, it's too late, something inside me clenches, because this phrase doesn't describe a reality. It justifies a decision, and these two things are very different. About a year ago, I was leading a group workshop with 8 women. They were women of different ages and backgrounds. Among them was a 61-year-old woman, a retired teacher, slender, always dressed in black or dark grey, who would tie her hair back tightly with a pin every morning. On the first day, as she introduced herself, she said, "I'm no longer at an age to deal with these things." Her voice wasn't harsh. She wasn't defensive. She was just tired. It was as if she'd told herself this so many times that it just slipped out without a second thought. I didn't say anything at that moment. Nothing that's forced is true change. Actually, when that woman walked in at the start of the 3rd week, something in the room shifted. She was wearing a light-colored, almost cream-colored blouse. The buttons were pearl-colored, a small detail but a noticeable choice. Her hair was loose, no tight bun. No one commented. No one needed to. Everyone had noticed already. She sat down, then turned to me and said in a low voice, "I actually feel ashamed. Why did I put this off for so long?" At that point, I remember pausing for a second. Then I said, "You didn't put it off. You just didn't start. You've started now." As I spoke those words, I felt something myself because that distinction matters. Putting things off is a conscious act. Not starting, however, is often an unconscious silence. Of course, the great master Seneca put it in different words, but the essence remains the same. We spend most of our lives waiting for the right time to start. And that right time never comes. Because waiting is a choice in itself, just an invisible one. Never forget this. Starting at 61 isn't too late. Starting at 58, 63, or 67 isn't too late. There's actually no such thing as too late. Only, I haven't started yet. And the word yet changes everything. Specifically, here's what I want you to do, not today, but sometime this week. Go to your closet. Don't rush. Think. Choose something that speaks to your body language. Comfortable but not sloppy. Put together but not constricted. You'll feel it. It's hard to describe. But you instinctively know which outfit lifts your shoulders and which one weighs them down. Wear that. Then, on a small piece of paper or in your phone, write just this. How did I feel today? Don't analyze. Don't evaluate. Just write. Because starting isn't about a big decision. It's about a small, quiet choice you make without having to explain yourself to anyone. 4. Style isn't about taste. It's about energy. Let's clarify something first, because there's a high chance this point could be misunderstood. Know this for certain. I'm not talking about expensive clothes or the latest trends. I won't say, buy this, wear that. That kind of advice eventually turns into empty noise disguised as consumption. Set aside everything that makes style a matter of money, class, or age. I'm talking about energy. Imagine this. No matter what you put on in the morning, that outfit sends a message to your body. Every day, whether you're aware of it or not. If you've been wearing the same faded, slightly too big, slightly worn-out clothes for years, your brain reads this as, I'm not important. This isn't a metaphor. Your brain actually processes it this way. Your posture changes, your shoulders slump, your steps get shorter. The dopamine system is directly affected. Research shows this. It's called enclothed cognition, meaning the awareness of what you're wearing. Clothing is a signal, and that signal works both ways, outward and inward. Of course, naturally, a worn-out piece of clothing says, I don't matter. When you say it every day, after a while you start to believe it. If we look at it from a different angle, Simone de Beauvoir expressed this in a completely different context, but with perfect accuracy. A woman becomes free when she stops waiting for another's gaze to see herself. This was written decades ago. But right now, it feels like it was written just for you, standing right in the middle of this video. Because you generate energy not by waiting for external validation, but by making decisions from within. Now, I'm going to tell you something very concrete. I'm guessing there's something in your closet. I know. It's been hanging there for at least 2 years, maybe 3. It's a beautiful piece. You remember thinking, this is so nice, when you first bought it. But you've never worn it. Where would I even wear this, you said. It's too fancy, you said. Maybe you even thought, it doesn't suit me anymore. Take that item out this week. Don't wait for a special day. No invitation, no plans, just an ordinary day, a Tuesday morning, just when you're at home cooking, reading a book. If you say no one will see it, that's the whole point. Without anyone seeing, just for yourself. Because saving joy for special days is actually pushing joy out of your life. When joy blends into daily life, over time, life itself begins to change. It's a small but lasting shift. An outfit, a Tuesday. Just you, it's that simple, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. 5. The most sabotaging enemy of self-care, feeling unworthy. First, let me be honest. I wanted to write this point but waited a while. Because it needs to be said with the right words. If it's too harsh, you'll shut down. If it's too soft, you'll brush it off. So here's what I'm saying. This point will make you uncomfortable, a little, and that's a good sign. Here's the reality. There are two distinct reasons why women stop taking care of themselves. The first is time. I don't have time. I'm always rushing around. I can't find the opportunity. That's a valid reason, I understand. But the second reason runs much deeper and is rarely discussed. The feeling that I don't deserve it. It's silent, invisible, but it weighs down on everything. Let me give an example. Think back over the years. The children were raised. The spouse was cared for. The elderly mother was visited. The sick father was waited on in the hospital. The neighbor's wedding was attended and no school meeting was missed. Her own turn was always put off until later. And when that turn finally comes, or is supposed to come, a strange voice rises inside. Now, me, am I really that important? That voice is very powerful and very sneaky because it disguises itself as humility. It sounds like, I'm not flashy. I don't make a big deal out of things. But what it's really saying is different. I can't come first. Let me ask you something, and be honest, no one's listening. For example, let me ask you this. When was the last time you bought something for yourself just because it would make you feel good? Not to pay a bill, not to buy a gift for someone, not out of obligation, just because this makes me happy. Can you remember? Do you have the date in mind? When most women hear this question, their eyes change a little. They think about how to answer. They really think. And that pause is already the answer itself. Now let me say this very clearly. That feeling isn't real. Also, I don't deserve it isn't a fact. It's a habit. It's a reflex learned over the years by pulling back time and time again. The brain processes it as if it were a fact because it's been repeated so often. Value isn't something you earn. It's already there. The sacrifices you make don't add to it, and the things you don't do don't take away from it. And habits can change, but only through small, concrete, repeated actions. Here's what I want from you. Once a month, write it down on your calendar. Really write it down, don't just keep it in your head. On that day, choose just one small thing for yourself. It could be a hair clip, a scent you've been eyeing for a while, a small accessory. It's not a big investment. It's not about money anyway. The point is this: to do it despite the voice inside you asking, but is this really necessary? Because that word despite changes everything. To choose is to say, I am here. Once a month, say this to yourself, out loud or in silence. I am here. It's that small. It's that big. 6. Dressing for yourself isn't selfishness. It's a responsibility. The final point, and perhaps the most important one. You're aware of it, aren't you? The people around you are draining your energy. Accept that. Your mothers, your grandmothers, your sisters, their energy carries something. And when you stop taking care of yourself, you're unknowingly draining that energy too. I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. On the contrary, of course, feeling good about yourself, choosing what you wear in the morning and saying, yes, this is me, affects not just you, but everyone around you. Your posture, your calm smile, the way your shoulders sit. These are forms of communication, wordless yet powerful. To give an example, Viktor Frankl has said for years, finding meaning begins not outside, but inside. And I'd add this: the reflection of the inside begins with body language every morning. If you've watched this video this far, something inside you has definitely stirred. And if you can only do one thing today, go to your closet, pick something just for yourself. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care of yourself, and see you in the next video. Remember, a woman is the one with the power to change the world, Boldly forge your own path and savor every moment.